Welcome back. As promised, we have a lot of stocks to discuss, so let's get straight to it, right? Abhishek is joining in first up to tell us how Bajaj Finance's numbers look this time. Abhishek, over to you.
Well, it looks like cost of funds actually weighed in on the numbers, especially with respect to net interest income as well as profitability. However, the key highlight is that they have made requests to RBI with respect to lifting the ban of two of their key products, that is e-com and Insta EMI cards. And they have given FY25 guidance as well in the PPT. So they mentioned that AUM growth will be around the 26 to 28% mark, and a new highlight that net interest margin will be under pressure and will come down by 30 to 40 basis points at least in H1 FY25. So cost of funds will weigh in the near term net interest margin is what they are saying. PNL is below pole. NI is at 8,013 crores, 6.7% below our pole. PAT is at 3,824 crores, which is 1.65% below our pole. So calculation does show that net interest margin might have declined 42 basis point YOY and about 15 basis point sequentially. ROA and ROE both have depleted or come down on a sequential as well as YOY basis. Back to you.
All right, Abhishek, thanks very much for that. So that is Bajaj Finance, the big one. Tech Mahindra is the other one which will react to numbers. Rima is here with the details. Rima, morning.
Hi, good morning. So it's a decent set of numbers. Revenues are slightly ahead of street expectations. They've declined by 0.8%. But again, it's not as bad as what the street had penciled in terms of a revenue contraction. Margins on expected lines have expanded by 200 basis points. Profits are up close to about 30%. But this time, the focus is on the 3-year turnaround plan announced by the CEO, Mohit Joshi, where the company says by FY27, 3 years from now, the company's the growth plan is to get to industry leading growth in 3 years and also improve margins from the current 6-7% to 15%. So the strategy is right, but it all boils down to execution.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. So that's Tech Mahindra. IndusInd Bank also came out with numbers. Abhishek is here to tell us how it looked. Abhishek, over to you.
Well, Sonia, it looked like a mixed bag coming out of IndusInd Bank. The NI missed our poll by 2%. However, profit was ahead of our poll as the bank utilized 300 crore of their provision pool this time around to make provisions. So that aided the bottom line. Asset quality, 14-quarter low in terms of slippage ratio. It has come in at 1.66% versus 2.16%. However, gross NPA and net NPA in absolute value increased by 5%, which shows that on a sequential basis, which shows that recovery and upgrades were on the lower side and not in line with what the slippages have been. Asset quality, 14-quarter low in terms of annualized slippage ratio, as I mentioned, at 1.66%. Net interest margin has come in at 6-quarter low at about 4.26%. Cost to income ratio, that's the worst or the highest in last 8 years or more, coming in at 48.2%. Despite that, their operating profit for 14 quarters in a row has grown both YOY and quarter on quarter. 5-quarter low in terms of ROE at 15.2%. Back to you.
All right, Abhishek, thanks for that. Well, coming back to you, Rima, you're tracking some more tech numbers from the broader market?
Yes, so LTTS, that's L&T Technology Services, and the other one is Cyient. Now, L&T Technology Services revenue performance was strong. So Q4 revenue growth at more than 5% was ahead of street expectations, but it's disappointing on the margin front. Not just the Q4 margins, which came in lower than street expectations, but even the company's guidance for next year. The company is saying that FY25 margins will decline by more than 100 basis points to 16% as the company's front-loading investment. So the margin guidance has disappointed the street. So Nomura has lowered EPS estimates by 5 to 9%. Cyient too has reported subdued numbers. There's nothing to cheer in the numbers. So dollar revenue growth on a consolidated basis is up 2.4%. Margins are largely stable, but their FY25 guidance for their DET business, which is the digital engineering technology business, 80% of their overall revenues, because they do get some balance from that Cyient DLM, which also got listed. So we look at the DET business, which excludes Cyient DLM. And here the company is guiding for high single-digit revenue growth FY25 and flat margins of 16%. Again, a little underwhelming in terms of a guidance.
All right, thanks a lot. In fact, we will connect with the management of Cyient. That happens at 9:30 a.m. today. And L&T Tech at 9:40 a.m. So it's a special on the IT sector. But there's so much to ask, to be honest. about what's happening with the job market, what's happening with the growth that we've seen from client spending, etc. So all of that coming up later on the show. Thanks a lot, Reema, for joining in. But Vamakshi is with us to tell us about UTI AMC and why she's watching that one. Vamakshi, good morning.
Well, good morning, Sonia. A weak set of numbers is what the company has reported this time around. Equity AUM grew only 0.2% on a sequential basis. Despite strong equity flows seen throughout the industry, they witnessed market share loss in equity, hybrid, as well as cash and arbitrage, quarterly average AUM as well. Nevertheless, the core revenue from operations has seen an uptick of almost 9.6% sequentially, and that is mainly being driven by revenue yields improvement to 43.7 basis points as compared to 42.5 basis points. Core revenue growth, however, was lower as compared to some of its peers. Nuvama says that the weakness persists in the counter. They've trimmed their FY25 net operating profit less adjusted taxes estimate by almost 2.6% and for FY26 by 0.4%. They believe that persistently soft operational performance as well as the recent run-up that was seen in the stock has driven the rating, has driven the downgrade in the rating to hold. They maintain an unchanged target price of 1,020 rupees per share, but largely the weakness persists in this counter.
Right, Vamakshi, thanks very much for that. More results. Reema is here with that list. Reema.
Let me start with Mphasis, where again it's a decent quarter. Revenues have come in line with street expectations. Revenues are up 2.1% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. But here the street might focus on the fact that there is a steady improvement in the company's growth rates. Remember, Mphasis gets a lot of revenues from the financial services segment, particularly the mortgage business in the US. So high inflation rates were hurting their business. So the company went through a rough patch. But now in the last 2-3 quarters, you are seeing an improvement in the growth rates. EBIT margins are slightly lower than street expectations. Zensar too has reported in-line revenues and margins. Revenue growth at 2%. EBIT margins are flat at 14.6%. The CFO has announced his decision to step down. Tanla Platforms has reported a decline in its margins quarter-on-quarter and on a year-on-year basis. So that could disappoint the street. Revenue number looks good at 20% on a year-on-year basis. Back to you.
Okay, do note that we will connect with the management of Mphasis, and that happens at 9:50 a.m. later today. So much to track. But Nigel is tracking Sandur Manganese today, Nigel.
Well, that's right, Sonia. And in fact, the tailwind is there because ore prices have moved up, manganese ore as well as iron ore prices. And now they've gone ahead and they've made this massive acquisition. It was announced midnight, actually. And they've entered into a share purchase agreement for Arja Steel Private Limited. Now, they'll be buying close to around 80% of the company. The remaining 20%, the promoter entity of Sandur Manganese will be buying into it. The background of the company that they're acquiring, well, it has an EAF, that's an electric arc furnace in Punjab. The timeline that they're saying is they're expecting it to get completed in the next 7 months. What about the financials? Well, the company actually did a revenue of more than 2,800 crores in the past fiscal. And they're buying it for an enterprise value of close to around 3,000 crores. Sandur Manganese, well, they're sitting on a fair bit of cash. So I think majority of this acquisition will be funded via cash in their books. And the rationale will be that they're going into forward integration. So currently they're into mining. Now they're moving into a steel plant. So two positives. One is effective use of the cash in their books. And the second positive is now a direction, the forward direction. Expect the stock to open up well in the green.
Okay, here's a quick recap of our top stocks. Stocks with positive news flow. Tech Mahindra, Mphasis, Zensar Tech and Sandur Manganese, while stocks with negative news flow, Bajaj Finance, IndusInd Bank, L&T Tech, UTI AMC, Cyient and Tanla Platforms. A quick word on what's happening in the world of commodities as well. Manisha Gupta is joining in. Manisha, good morning.
Morning, and thank you for that, Sonia. It's a strong day for commodities across board. We've seen gold and silver prices rise, even despite the risks of delayed Fed cuts. But the street is looking at the first quarter GDP numbers, which have grown much lesser. And then you have lower than anticipated jobless claims as well. So it's not just gold and silver. Overall, the metal as a sector is doing quite well. Nigel was just talking about iron ore, etc. Steel is trading in the positive. Zinc is trading at a new 12-month highs. But the best of gains clearly have come in for copper, where LME is trading at a 2-year highs, and the Shanghai copper prices have hit yet another record highs. Good going in the energy space also. The crude oil prices are up 2% in this week. We are back above $89 a barrel. The U.S. Treasury SECI says that the U.S. economy is in stronger position, and we've seen stronger stabilizing demand growth numbers come in from all across the world, whether it's U.S., Japan, or Asia for that matter. But the best of move really has come in for the natural gas prices. I mean, that has seen a turn up, 27% up overnight. It's trading at a 7-week highs right now.
Manisha, thanks very much for that. That's commodities in focus, and we'll come back to you for more as the day goes on. We'll take a break here. We are back. We'll come back with Siddharth Khemka, who's going to be with us in just a bit from now. By the way, the other big cue, of course, is the second phase of polling, right? 89 Lok Sabha constituencies across 13 states and union territories will go to polls today in the second phase. Mphasis founder Narayan Murthy casted this vote in a Bengaluru polling booth this morning. Those are visuals that you can see right now.